Chapter 1. The Purple Palace. The woman with platinum blonde hair and green eyes put her little finger in her mouth. "Hey," she said. "For an old guy, you're not bad looking." She sipped some champagne from her glass. Then she smiled. She smiled, and suddenly, her whole face changed. Before she had looked like a naughty child. Now she was a beautiful woman. She had high cheekbones below her beautiful green eyes. She had a long, straight nose and a wide mouth. Her shiny blonde hair was cut short. Her eyes were shining as she looked straight at me. "Yeah," she went on, "you really don't look too bad. Do you know something, mister? I could fall for a guy like you." What could I say? I'm in my early 30s. Well, that's what I tell people. The truth is that I'm nearer 40, and the woman I was looking at couldn't have been a day more than 23. I meet lots of women in my line of work, but I rarely meet anyone as beautiful as this one. And on the few occasions when I have met a real stunner, she certainly hasn't wanted to have anything to do with me. Still, the woman had a point. I'm not bad looking. Dark hair, brown eyes, good teeth, nice clothes. And I've kept myself in shape. I go to the gym 3 times a week. It's true that my face shows the marks of my time as an amateur boxer. There are some small scars round my eyes, and my nose isn't quite straight anymore. Somebody broke it in a fight. The only problem, the woman continued, is your job. No one ever got rich by doing your job. And I like expensive things. She smiled again. She had another point. I was sure that she spent a lot of money, and I certainly wasn't rich. I'm a private investigator, that is, a private detective, in Los Angeles, California. My clients are often people who live on the edges of LA society. Protection, security, blackmail, corruption, missing persons, small crimes. These are the things I deal with every day. Sometimes I even have a murder case. The only jobs I don't do are divorce cases and marriage problems. My life isn't easy, but there is usually enough money each month to pay the rent for my apartment and the rent for my office. But there isn't any place in my life for a woman who looks like $1 million and dresses as if she had $1 million. And the woman I was looking at now was obviously one of those. "Still, what the hell?" the blonde said. She put down her glass of champagne and took a step towards me. "Come on, Charlie, we're alone tonight. Kiss me." "Charlie?" "My name's not Charlie, it's Lenny Samuel. Some people call me Len." Still, I wasn't going to argue. I stood up and took a step towards the blonde. "Hey fella, sit down," a man's voice shouted. The blonde smiled. I opened my arms. "Hey fella, I told you to sit down," the man shouted again. I stared into the blonde's beautiful green eyes. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Sit down. Now," the voice said. I turned around. The man standing behind me was taller than me and heavier. I'm 1 meter 90 tall, and I weigh just over 90 kilos, all muscle. But this guy was bigger than me in every way, and he was angry. "Sit down, fella," he shouted. "I can't see the screen, you stand there." I sat down and I looked up at the movie screen again. Now the blonde actress was kissing a man. It was a close-up shot. The woman was 30 meters away from me and her face was 5 meters high. Her name was Gail Lane. She was the hottest actress in Hollywood, and this was the closest I had ever got to her. "I'm sorry, fella," I said to the man behind me. I guess I got carried away. I go to the movies a lot, especially when business is bad. And just then, business was very bad indeed. My last case had ended a few weeks before. Someone had stolen a racehorse from a beautiful woman. I'd found the horse, but I hadn't any money. Since then, I'd tidied my office, cleaned my car, gone to the gym a lot, and waited for the phone to ring. It hadn't rung. I didn't have any new clients. So, most days, I went to the movies. The movie ended, and the lights came on. I got up and went to the men's washroom. There was a floor-to-ceiling mirror there, and I stood in front of it and looked at myself. It was true. I wasn't bad looking. I was wearing a black leather jacket, a bright checked shirt, and a pair of new black trousers. My brown Timberland boots completed the picture. I took out my dark glasses and put them on. "Cool," I said to the mirror, and I walked out of the movie theatre. It was just before midnight. I decided that I didn't need the dark glasses. I walked round the corner to the parking lot, and I got into my old grey Chrysler. Then I drove slowly past the bars and clubs, trying to decide what to do. It was too early to go to bed, but it was too late to start calling friends to see if they wanted to go out. I was bored. I wanted something to happen. I was just passing the Purple Palace, one of LA's most expensive nightclubs, when something did happen. A shiny white open-top car suddenly pulled out from the sidewalk. I hit the brakes and the Chrysler stopped. But the white car didn't stop. It hit the side of the Chrysler with a loud crash. I was okay. I got out of the car. The Chrysler was okay too. They don't make cars like that anymore. But the white car wasn't okay, and neither was its driver. The front of the car was badly smashed, and oil was running out from under the engine. The driver was still sitting at the wheel, and there was some blood on his face. The driver of the white car was wearing a smart suit, and he had short, well-cut hair. He looked about 25, but his hair was steel grey. After a few moments, he opened the car door. He walked towards me with an angry face. "I'm going to make you pay for this," he said. He tried to grab my arm. His breath smelt of whiskey. Then he tried to hit me. He tried, but he didn't succeed. I used to be a boxer, and this man was drunk. I leant back, and the blow missed. I was about to knock the man to the ground when he suddenly closed his eyes and fell over. I hadn't touched him. I felt a hand on my shoulder. "That guy's a fool," a voice said. I turned around. It was a woman with platinum blonde hair and beautiful green eyes. Chapter 2. "What do you want me to do?" "That guy's a fool," Gail Lane repeated. "I'm sorry, mister." I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came out. I was standing in the middle of a busy street in downtown LA with the hottest actress in Hollywood. "Say something," Gail said. "Hey, well." What do you want me to do?" I managed to say. "Well, let's start by getting my car off the road," Gail said. "Your car?" I asked. "Yeah," she replied. "It's my car. He shouldn't have been driving it. He's had far too much to drink." The parking attendant brought the car round to the front of the club, and Mike took the keys. I argued with him, but he wouldn't let me drive. "Mike," I asked, "do you repeat everything someone says?" Gail asked sharply. "Mike Devine is his name. Have you ever heard of him?" I had. Mike Devine was the son of Joel Devine, who was a rich and successful movie producer. Mike had never done a day's work in his life. But he was never short of money. His father made sure of that. As a result, Mike Devine had got into lots of trouble. There were always stories about him in the newspapers, stories about gambling debts, accidents, women, things like that. Now, Mike Devine lay in the street next to my Chrysler. Gail and I pushed the damaged white car to the sidewalk. A crowd of people was standing there staring at us. Then someone recognized Gail. Suddenly, people started to point at us and talk. Gail looked at me. She smiled and her face changed just like it had in the movie. She touched my arm. "There is something else you can do for me," she said in a quiet, warm voice. "I can't stay here. People have seen me. I've got to get home. Will you help me, please?" "Sure," I said. "Let's go." I was delighted. I was excited. Perhaps Gail would invite me into her apartment. There would be soft lights and soft music. Anything might happen. She smiled at me again. "You're a nice guy," she said. We walked over to the Chrysler. Mike Devine's eyes were open now. There was blood on his smart suit. When he saw Gail, he stood up and held onto the side of my Chrysler. "Get into this guy's car before the police come, Mike," Gail said to the young man. She pulled Mike Devine by his jacket, opened the back door of the Chrysler and pushed him in. "Oh," I muttered. "You'd like me to take him home too?" "He lives at 9002 Hollywood Boulevard," Gail said sweetly, "and thank you for your help." "It's a pleasure," I replied. "Please get in." I opened the front passenger door. Gail looked puzzled for a moment, then she laughed. "No thanks," she said. "I'm taking a cab. Thank you again for your help." Her lips touched my cheek briefly, and then she was gone. She ran to the sidewalk, where the doorman of the Purple Palace called a cab for her. I watched her go, then I got into the Chrysler. There was a strange noise coming from the back seat. I turned round. Mike Devine was being sick. I opened the window and drove away. A few minutes later, Mike Devine was unconscious. 9002 Hollywood Boulevard was a tall new building with windows of black glass. I stopped outside it and switched off the Chrysler's engine. A doorman came out of the building and walked up to the car. He was a short, heavy man with a small moustache. "Hey, you can't park here, mister," the doorman said. I pointed at the unconscious figure lying on the back seat. "Does he live here?" I asked. The doorman looked at Mike. Then he opened the back door of the car and stepped away as the smell reached him. "Yeah, he lives here," the doorman replied. "Apartment 501. "Help me to take him up to his apartment," I said. Together, the doorman and I carried Mike Devine into the hallway and across to the elevator. The doorman came up with us in the elevator and waited while I found some keys in Mike Devine's trouser pocket. I unlocked the apartment door. "Okay," the doorman said. "Are you a friend of Mr. Devine?" "Well, no," I replied. "But I'm a friend of a friend." "Why?" "We're very careful about who comes in and out of this building, but if you're a friend of Mr. Devine's friend, then I guess you can go in," the doorman replied. "But you'll have to give me your name." I gave him one of my business cards. "Huh, a private eye," the doorman muttered. "A private detective," I replied. "But can you keep an eye on my car?" "Okay." the doorman replied and got back into the elevator. I opened the apartment door and pulled Mike Devine into a big living room. I knew at once that something was wrong. All the lights were on. Clothes and books were lying all over the floor. Paintings hung sideways on the walls. "Where's the bathroom?" I asked Mike. He muttered something and pointed to a door. I took him into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Full power, ice cold. Then I pushed him into the shower with his clothes on. He made a noise when the ice-cold water hit his face, but 5 minutes later Mike could stand up on his own with his eyes open. I threw him a towel. "Get dried, then put some clean clothes on," I said. "I'll wait for you in the living room." I closed the bathroom door and started to look around the apartment more carefully. The living room was a real mess. The windows were open and the curtains were moving in the gentle wind. There was a corridor on my left. I guessed there were bedrooms behind the doors in the corridor. I opened the first door quietly. I saw a large bedroom. It was decorated in white. White walls, white carpet, a huge white bed. I stepped into the room and walked towards the bed. I don't know what I was looking for. Then I heard a noise behind me. Before I could turn round, something hit me on the back of the head. I guess I must have fallen heavily to the floor, but I was unconscious by then. Chapter 3, Mike Devine. I could feel hands touching my body. The hands turned me onto my side. Someone started to empty the pockets of my leather jacket. They took out my wallet, my business cards, my gun. I opened my eyes a little. A face was looking at me. It had short blonde hair and green eyes, and it was smiling at me. I smiled back, but the blonde woman's face didn't change. I closed my eyes and opened them again. She was still smiling at me. I moved my head a little. It hurt. "Sit up," a voice said. It wasn't Gail Lane's voice. It was a man who spoke. I opened my eyes wide and saw that I had been looking at a photograph of Gail. The photograph was on a low white bedside table. Mike Devine was sitting on the edge of the bed. He was wearing a white bathrobe with Palm Beach Resort written on it. He was holding my gun, and he was pointing it at my head. "Now," Mike Devine said in a quiet, hard voice, "who are you? And what are you doing on my bedroom floor?" I touched the back of my head. It still hurt. I looked at my watch. 2 o'clock. I must have been unconscious for over an hour. Mike Devine had obviously woken up after the cold shower I had given him. "You can see who I am," I replied. "You've got my business cards. Look in my wallet, and you'll find my detective's license. Then please give me my things back." Mike Devine laughed. The gun was still pointing at my head. "I'm not that stupid," he said, and he threw the wallet over to me. "You open the wallet and show me your license." I picked up the wallet and showed him my detective's license. "Okay," Mike Devine went on. "Now tell me what you're doing here. My apartment has been wrecked, and you're lying on my bedroom floor." I told Mike what had happened, and how I had helped him to get home. He looked at me and shook his head. "No," he said after a moment, "I don't remember a thing, and I don't believe you." He walked over to a phone by the bed and picked it up. "Get me security," he said. There was a pause. After a few moments he spoke again. "Security. Hi, this is Mike Devine in 501. I've got an intruder here. Can you come up?" "No, I'm not in danger. I've got his gun." Mike hung up and sat down on the bed. You're making a mistake, I said. We'll soon find out, he replied. 2 minutes later, someone rang the bell of the apartment door and Mike Devine went to open it. A moment later, he came back into the bedroom with another man. It was the doorman with the moustache, the man who had helped me carry Devine in from the car. "Where's the intruder?" the doorman asked. Mike Devine pointed at me. The doorman gave a short, loud laugh. "He's a private eye," the doorman said. "He brought you home and he and I carried you up here." Mike Devine looked at me in surprise. He threw my gun back to me. "I'm sorry, fella," he said. "I've got a couple of questions," I said to the doorman. "Did you let anyone in here earlier this evening? And did anyone leave after I got here?" "The answer to both questions is no," the doorman replied. "I don't let people into apartments when the owner's out, and no one left. If anyone had gone out through the hallway, I would have seen them." Mike Devine thanked the doorman, then turned to me. "There's one thing, Mr. Samuel. I don't seem to have any money on me. Could you lend me $50? I smiled. Rich people, they're the ones who've never got any money. I opened my wallet and gave Mike $50. He walked over to the doorman and gave him the money. "There's no need to say anything about this to anyone," Mike said. The doorman thanked him and left the apartment. I sat on the bed and thought about what had happened. Who had hit me on the head? Had Mike himself done it? If he hadn't hit me, there must have been someone else in the apartment. Certainly someone had wrecked the living room. Perhaps that person had hit me on the head when I came into the bedroom. But why? I asked myself the question, but my head hurt, and I felt tired. I couldn't think of an answer. "Look," Mike said. "I'm sorry. It's late. Can I offer you a bed for the night? I don't know who's been here. Whoever hit you on the head must have got out while I was in the bathroom. Perhaps they thought they were hitting me." "But the doorman said that no one had left the building," I replied. "So perhaps they're still here somewhere, or perhaps they're hiding in another apartment. But they must have a key to your apartment. The first thing to do is to make sure they're not still here." Together we searched every room in Mike Devine's apartment. We found no one. Suddenly, I had an idea. "I won't take your offer of a bed for the night," I said. "My car's outside. The police will take it away if I leave it in the street any longer." "Put the car in the garage," Mike said. "There's a garage underneath the apartment building and the elevator goes straight down to it." My idea had been a good one. Mike had told me something that I had already guessed. So someone could have left the apartment, then taken the elevator down to the garage and driven away without the doorman seeing them, I said. At that moment the phone rang. Mike Devine answered it. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I see." Then he hung up. He looked terrible. "Who was it?" I asked. "Someone I owe some money to," he replied. "He said that he wrecked the apartment. He said it was a warning. He said he was sorry he had hit you. He thought you were me. And he said that next time, he wouldn't wreck my apartment, he would wreck me." So the person who had hit me on the head was trying to frighten Mike Devine. And he had succeeded. Mike was looking very frightened indeed. "Mr. Samuel," Mike said, "I think I need some protection. I will pay you to stay here for the rest of the night. Will $200 be all right?" "Plus the 50 you borrowed," I replied with a smile. I left the apartment and went down to the hallway. I told the doorman I was staying for the rest of the night, Then I went out into the street. Quickly, I drove the Chrysler into the underground garage. 10 minutes later, I had turned off the lights in Mike Devine's living room, and I was sitting in a comfortable chair with my gun beside me. Mike had gone to sleep in his huge white bed. The hours passed. Nothing happened. There were no intruders. I didn't get any sleep. The phone rang at 6 o'clock. I answered it. "Mr. Devine's apartment," I said. "Who's that?" a woman's voice asked. I knew that voice. It was Gail Lane. At that point, Mike Devine picked up a phone in his bedroom and began to speak. I hung up immediately, so I never knew what she said to him. Chapter 4. Crazy Ellens. I knocked on Mike Devine's bedroom door. "It's Lenny Samuel," I called through the door. "I'm leaving now, Mr. Devine. There's one of my business cards on the table in the living room. You can send me the $250 later." Mike muttered something inside the bedroom. I didn't understand what he said. I left the apartment, got the Chrysler from the garage, and drove home. After a couple of hours' sleep, a hot shower, and some clean clothes, I was a new man. I drove downtown to my office building, parked the car, and went into Crazy Ellen's. Crazy Ellen's is a bar and a cafe and a diner and a meeting place. It's next to the building where my office is on West Beaumont Drive. Don't ask me where the name of the bar came from. The owner of Crazy Ellen's isn't a mad woman called Ellen, or even a sane woman called Ellen. The owner is a man, an old Greek called Kostas. I've known him for more years than I want to remember. I go to his bar a lot. People know that if I'm not in my office, I'll probably be at Crazy Ellen's. "Hi, Len," Kostas shouted as I came in. It was shortly after 9 o'clock and the place was empty. "Hey, you look tired. Didn't you sleep?" "Hi, Kostas," I said, taking a seat at the bar. "I'm okay. Give me some black coffee, some orange juice, and a couple of fried eggs, please." I ate my breakfast and I chatted to Kostas about baseball. Then I went to my office, 2 rooms on the 4th floor of an old building. On the floor of the waiting room there was a pile of mail. I stepped over it and went through to my private room. There's not a lot to see: a desk, a couple of chairs, a grey filing cabinet, a window with a broken blind. I blew the dust off my chair and sat down at the desk. The red light on the answer phone told me that some phone messages were waiting for me. I pressed the play messages button. There were 2 messages. The first message was from a man who didn't give his name. The message was short and simple. "If you know what's good for you, Samuel, you'll take a holiday," the voice said. "Next time, it won't be just a little knock on the head." Interesting. This was a warning, and it was connected with Mike Devine in some way. But who was warning me? I didn't recognize the voice, and the caller hadn't left a number for me to phone, but I knew the second caller as soon as he started to speak. It was a man called Rick. Rick Roma and I were old friends. "Hi, Len, how are things?" Rick said. "Listen, I may have a job for you. Can you meet me for lunch today? Give me a call." And he left a phone number for me to call. Rick's full name is Riccardo, and he is Italian-American. His family came from Sicily in the 1930s. Rick and I worked together in the LARD, the Los Angeles Police Department. My family is Hispanic. My full name is Leonardo, though people always call me Len or Lenny. My family came to the US from Puerto Rico, so Rick and I had something we could talk about. Rick and I left the LAPD at about the same time. Rick went to work as a security man at a big movie studio in Hollywood. I became a private eye. Rick had done very well over the years. He had been very successful in his work and he was now head of security at Magic Movie Productions. He always had new cars and he lived in a luxury house in the hills with 2 swimming pools. Me? Well, I've got an old car, a small apartment, and a little wooden cabin in the hills. You can guess how well I've done. I called Rick, and we arranged to meet at Gate 4 of the Magic Movie Production Studios at 1 o'clock. I spent the rest of the morning at the gym in the basement of my office building. Then I had a quick shower and drove across town to the studios. Rick was standing outside Gate 4. Rick is tall and thin with a high forehead and short black hair. He has deep brown eyes. When he looks at you, you think he is looking through you. I got out of my car and Rick put his arm around my shoulder. Then he led me through the gate, showing his security pass to the guard. You have to show a pass, I laughed. Sure, Len. The security's real tight here, Rick replied. We had lunch in the studio commissary, the movie studio's name for a restaurant, with 15 nuns, 20 Japanese warriors, 50 English peasants, several princesses and a giant. We're making a fantasy movie in Studio 12, Rick explained. These are the extras. They walk on and off the set, but they don't have speaking parts. The stars and the other actors have their own private dining rooms. They don't eat at the commissary. So, what other movies are being made here at the moment? I asked. I have always been fascinated by movie making since I was a child. I was really interested. Rick laughed. We don't make very many movies here at the studios anymore. Most of the studio area is used for tourism. We get lots of tourist groups visiting Hollywood. They come in to see the old sets, the sets of movies we made in the past. But now most of our movies are made on location, often in other countries. For example, many of the best people for special effects are in England, so we often work there. And we shoot scenes all over the world. Sometimes we do part of a movie here, and then go on location for the rest of it. I was disappointed. I'd been hoping to see a movie being made. I told Rick this. He smiled. I'll see what I can do, he said. I'll try to arrange something after lunch. But before we eat, I want to ask you a question. Are you busy at the moment? Or would you like to do a job for us? Something a little unusual? I didn't need time to think. Yeah, I said. I'm pretty busy, but I guess I could do something for you. Rick laughed. You always were a bad liar. This is what it's about. He took a photograph out of his pocket and passed it over to me. Do you recognize her? Gail Lane was smiling at me from the photograph. Yes, I replied. I spoke to her this morning. Chapter 5. Death Behind the Door. I gave the photo back to Rick and I listened to him carefully. You obviously know who she is, he began. But what do you mean about speaking to her this morning? She's working here at the studios today. She was on the set at 7 o'clock. Don't worry about it, I replied. I meant that I dreamt about her. I was speaking to her in my dreams. Yeah, so were a few million other men, Rick said with a laugh. But this is serious, Len. Gail Lane is the hottest actress in Hollywood this year. The studio has invested a lot of money in her. She's a big star in the US already, and she'll soon become a world star. That's why the things that have happened have worried the studio bosses so much. What has happened, Rick? I interrupted. Tell me. You're being very mysterious. Well, Len, I'll tell you. Rick spoke quietly now, although the nuns at the next table certainly weren't listening to us. This is very secret. Only one other person knows about it. You must promise not to tell anyone about what I'm going to tell you. If it's secret, why are you talking to me about it? I asked. Why aren't you telling your own studio security staff? Because no one else in Magic Movie Productions must find out about this, Rick replied. Those are the orders of Homer Frank, the studio's chief executive. Gail Lane is working on a movie here at the moment, Rick went on. It's an international thriller, and the budget is huge. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this movie. So that makes Gail very valuable, and someone has been sending death threats. Rick, do you mean that Gail Lane has been getting letters from someone who's threatening to kill her? I asked. Not exactly, Rick replied with a shake of the head. Then he paused while the waitress came to take our orders. I ordered tuna with a green salad and Rick ordered pasta. The threats were sent by email directly to Homer Frank, Rick continued. Gail doesn't know about them. She hasn't been told. Mr. Frank is afraid that she'll get scared. I can understand that, I said. I'd get scared if someone said they were going to kill me. What exactly did these messages say? There were 3 messages, all sent during the last 3 days, Rick answered in a low voice. They said, Death behind the door will be the death of Gail Lane. Stop the movie or we'll stop her. All the messages were the same. I was puzzled. Sorry, Rick, I said. I heard the words, but I didn't understand them. Rick sighed. Okay, I'll try again. Gail Lane is making a movie for Magic Movie Productions called Death Behind the Door. The message says that unless we stop making the movie, Gail will be killed. Our food arrived and we stopped talking for a few minutes. The tuna was great. It was juicy with a lime and sweet pepper sauce. I was thinking hard while I ate it. Rick ate his pasta hungrily. There obviously wasn't anything wrong with that either. Rick, you've got to tell Gail about these threats, I said as we finished eating. She might not want to risk being in this movie. You must give her the choice. We can't afford to stop the movie, Len, Rick said quietly. It's half finished now. There are hundreds of millions of bucks invested in it. Mr. Frank won't stop the movie. But we are going to protect Miss Lane. And that's where I want your help. I don't think I'd be a good bodyguard, Rick, I said quickly. Gail Lane is very attractive. I couldn't be near her and do the job properly. Rick laughed. No, Len, he said. Gail already has 2 bodyguards, very good ones. I want you to join the movie crew, so that you're on the set all the time. I want you to keep an eye on everyone else. Perhaps these threats are just a hoax, a joke from a mad person, but we can't be sure. Okay, I said. $500 a day plus expenses. 400, Rick replied. 450, I said. Okay. 450, Rick replied with a quick smile. But what will I do on the set? I asked. I don't know anything about how movies are made. You're going to be Miss Lane's advisor on detectives and investigations, Rick said. In the movie, she plays a private detective. You can tell her about how detectives work. You can start work tomorrow and bring your passport with you. My passport, I asked. Why? I said this movie is an international thriller, Rick answered. We've finished the Asian scenes already. Today is the last day of shooting here at the studios. After today, the whole crew moves on to South America. When we finish there, we'll go on to Europe. What scenes are you shooting today, Rick? I asked. Today's scenes will be shot with some of the stars' stunt doubles, Rick said. There's lots of fighting in today's scenes. There'll be blood everywhere. Not real blood, of course. I ordered coffee. Rick wasn't telling me everything. I was sure of that. He was hiding something. But what? Perhaps I'd never know. But you said that Gail was working here today too, I said. Can I watch the shooting for a while? Rick shook his head. Sorry, Len. It's a closed set. That means no visitors. Carla Chapman, the director of the movie, insists on that. She says that visitors always upset the actors. But I'm not a visitor, I said. I'm Miss Lane's advisor on being a detective. You said so yourself. Rick thought for a minute. Okay, Len. There's not time to get you a security pass. But I'll get you onto the set using mine. We finished our coffee and left the commissary. A group of cowboys was just arriving. We walked over to Studio 9. There was a big sign outside. Death behind the door. Set closed. Rick spoke to the security guards who let us both in. Follow me, Rick whispered. Be careful, it will be very dark inside, and don't make a noise or Carla will kill us, and there really will be blood everywhere. We walked very quietly through the darkness of the studio. Everywhere there were boxes and ropes, metal wires and electric cables. In the distance we could see a bright light. When we got closer, we could see that it was a huge, bright blue screen, like a movie theatre screen. We could see someone hanging down on a rope in front of the screen. This is a blue screen, Rick whispered. Later, these shots will be combined with some shots of a rocky mountainside. When the audience sees the movie in a movie theatre, they'll think that the actor was really climbing a mountain. I watched in silence. I was fascinated. The person on the rope was still quite high up in front of the screen, at least 15 meters from the floor. Suddenly there was a loud scream, and the actor fell to the studio floor. Lights went on everywhere. We ran towards the person on the floor. It was a woman with short blonde hair. It's Gail, I said to Rick. Chapter 6. The Bodyguards. There was a moment of silence on the set. Rick and I stared at the blonde woman on the floor. Then people came running from all directions. Rick took charge. Stand back, Rick shouted. Get an ambulance. I was quickly pushed to the back of the crowd of actors and technicians who came and stood around the woman. I walked slowly away from them. There was nothing I could do. Gail is dead, I thought. She died in front of me, and I'm the man who was going to protect her. I felt terrible. I had wanted to protect Gail Lane. I had only met her once, but I had liked her very much, even if I didn't admire her choice of boyfriend. Sadly, I walked towards some other sets which were not in use that day. After a minute, I came to one which was like the inside of a Japanese home. It looked like a real room, but there was no ceiling and there were only 3 walls. There were several doors which didn't open. There was nowhere to go. And I had nowhere to go now. Because of Gail's death, my job had finished before it had really started. I left the Japanese room and walked slowly on, through half-built sets and across open spaces. Studio 9 was the size of an aircraft hangar, and several Boeing 747s could have been parked inside it. 10 minutes later, I saw something that I didn't believe. I saw her. Gail. Just for a moment, I saw her bright blonde hair as a door near the end of the building opened and closed. I couldn't believe it. Slowly and carefully, I walked towards the door. Soon I realized that I was looking at a row of dressing rooms, the rooms where actors change their clothes and wait during shooting. Each dressing room had a door and a window. There was a light on inside one of the rooms, though all the others were dark and empty. I stepped quietly over to the lighted window and looked in. Gail Lane was sitting at a table with a cup in her hand. Her face was wet and her eyes were shiny. She had been crying. I didn't have time to think about what I could see. As I looked through the window, someone grabbed my right arm and twisted it behind my back. I turned round and tried to grab my attacker. That was a mistake. My feet were kicked from under me. I fell to the floor and my attacker jumped on top of me. I struggled and I tried to get free, but my face was pressed against the floor and the attacker was still holding my right arm, and now they had their knee on the back of my neck. I tried to turn over. That didn't work, but my left arm was still free, so I reached behind my back and grabbed hold of a foot. I twisted the foot as hard as I could. There was a scream of pain from my attacker and I quickly pushed them off my back. Then I dived, grabbing the person from behind. I forced the attacker to stand up with both arms held behind them. The attacker suddenly started kicking my legs. "Stand still or I'll really hurt you," I said. "Oh yes," a voice said behind me. It was a woman's voice. Then 2 fists hit me, low down on my back. The pain was terrible. Next, someone's fingers stabbed at the base of my neck, just above my shoulders. I let go of the person I was holding and turned as quickly as I could. I turned just in time to receive a kick to the head. I spun around and fell heavily to the floor. Then I knew nothing. When I woke up, I was still lying on the floor. A woman was sitting on my chest, holding me down. Another woman was sitting on my legs. "Let me get up," I said. "I can explain why I'm here. Josie's just been injured, and you're here looking into Gail's dressing room window," the woman on my chest said. She had shiny dark hair and was wearing a suit. "And you haven't got a pass," she went on. "You'll stay where you are until someone from security comes." I lay on the floor for what seemed to be a long time. Then I heard footsteps. "So you think you've caught him?" a voice said. I knew that voice. It was Rick. The women got off me. "There he is," said the dark-haired woman. "Take him away." I looked up at Rick. "Sorry, Rick," I said. "I got lost." And then I pointed at the 2 women. "These animals attacked me." "Fine," Rick said. "Let me introduce you to Annie and Arabella, Miss Lane's bodyguards." He pointed at the women in turn. "I told you they were good." Annie was the one with dark hair. Arabella had red hair and she was wearing a suit like Annie's. "And who is he?" Arabella asked angrily. "His name is Lenny Samuel. He's an advisor for Miss Lane," Rick replied. "He's going to advise her on how to behave like a private detective." "Oh, really?" Arabella laughed. "What does he know?" "We caught him easily enough." "Wait," I interrupted. "What's happened? Gail Lane can't be in 2 places at the same time. If Gail is here in her dressing room, who was that over there on the set?" The person who had the accident is called Josie. She's not dead, but she's quite badly injured. She was Gail's stunt double, someone who did the most dangerous parts of Gail's acting, Rick explained. The rope she was attached to broke. It was a terrible accident. Or a warning, I said. I stood up slowly. My back and neck hurt. I shook hands with Annie and Arabella. I can see that Miss Lane is well protected, I added. Yeah, when she wants to be, Arabella replied angrily. What do you mean? I asked. Sometimes she goes out at night without us, Annie said. We can't protect her then. She was angry too. Perhaps after this accident she'll be more careful, I said. I'd like to introduce Mr. Samuel to Miss Lane, Rick said, but perhaps this isn't a good time. Gail is very upset about Josie's accident, Annie said, but I'll ask her if she'll meet Mr. Samuel for a few minutes. I guess there won't be any more shooting today. Annie went into the dressing room and closed the door behind her. We waited outside in silence. Then the door opened. Miss Lane will meet Mr. Samuel for a few minutes. She can't talk for long. She doesn't feel well, Annie said. I followed Annie into the dressing room. Gail was sitting at a table holding a handkerchief. She looked up, and those green eyes were full of worry. She held out her hand. I'm pleased to meet you, she said in a low voice. I'm sorry, I'm very upset. Josie was a friend, as well as my double. Mr. Samuel will be advising you on how private detectives behave, Rick explained. Arabella laughed quietly. Gail looked at me again more closely. I could feel her beautiful eyes staring at me. Haven't we met before? She asked. I thought for a moment. Arabella and Annie got angry when Gail went out without them, when she went out with Mike Devine, for example. No, Miss Lane, I replied. Chapter 7. From LA to BA. Rick and I left Gail Lane's dressing room and walked back to the set where the accident had happened. The police had arrived and were taking statements from everyone. Rick and I told them what we had seen. The area around the huge screen was closed off with yellow tape, and a number of detectives were carefully searching the floor there. A grey-haired lieutenant from the LAPD, a man called Dickinson, had taken charge. I had met him before. I asked him what he thought had happened. I don't know yet. It's hard to say, Dickinson replied. The rope was checked before shooting started, and it was okay then. So why did it break? Someone must have made a cut in the rope to make it break easily, I said. Dash, Dickinson said. You might be right. If you have any other ideas, call me. You know where to find me. Rick had to stay in the studio while the police detectives were making their investigation. I waited with him. I'm used to waiting and watching, and there was plenty to watch on the movie set. 2 hours later, the police had gone and Rick and I were sitting in his smart office. We'll have to shoot here for an extra day because of Josie's accident, Rick told me. Then the whole crew is moving to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. I want you to come along. Rick was interrupted by one of his phones ringing. He answered it. Yes, I see, he said. I will, yes sir, I will. I've got a new man here now. He put the phone down. That was Mr. Frank. He's had another email. The message said, this time we got the double. Next time it will be the star. Mr. Frank is very worried. So it wasn't an accident, I said softly. And you told me it was a closed set. with no visitors allowed. So the person who cut the rope was probably someone working on the movie. Rick nodded. Yes. Or someone who had hidden in the studio before shooting started. We just don't know, he said. That's why I want you to join us in Buenos Aires. I want you on the set all the time. Gail has Arabella and Annie with her whenever she isn't acting. But I want you to watch out for anything suspicious. How many people are there in the movie crew? I asked. There'll be 205 of us flying to Buenos Aires, Rick replied, and probably about 200 Argentines will join us in BA. You need a lot of people to make a movie. And you want me to keep an eye on all of them, I exclaimed. Rick smiled. I'm sure you'll find out who has been threatening Gail, he said. I know you, Len. You're always in trouble. Just stay with the crew and the trouble will find you. 2 days later, I was flying at 10,000 meters over Brazil on my way to Buenos Aires. I sat back in the comfortable seat of the Aerolíneas Argentinas Boeing 747 and I thought about what had happened during the past few days. What was the relationship between Gail and Mike Devine? Why did someone want to stop the shooting of Death Behind the Door? Why was someone threatening to kill Gail? Who had injured Josie, Gail's double? And was he or she on the plane with us? There were plenty of questions, but no answers. I looked at Rick, asleep in the next seat. There was certainly something he hadn't told me. I thought about Gail, sitting in the first-class section at the front of the plane. I thought about the worry I had seen in her eyes at the studio. Then I thought about Carla Chapman. She was also in the first-class section. I had met her briefly at the airport before we got onto the plane. Carla was one of Hollywood's best-known movie directors, a powerful and very hard-working person. She was a strong, proud 45-year-old with shoulder-length black hair and gold-framed glasses. At the airport, she had shaken my hand firmly, and she had said it was nice to meet me. Then she had told me to keep out of the way during shooting. After that, she had wrapped her long black coat around her and walked away. I hadn't yet seen Brent Foster, Gail's co-star in the movie. He was being flown to Argentina in his own private jet. I hadn't met him, but I felt that I knew him because I had seen so many of his movies. He always played bad guys, but he always got the girls. He looked a little like me, but he was younger and heavier, and he had blonde hair and blue eyes. I was looking forward to meeting Brent. After a while, I stopped thinking about my job, and I looked out of the window at the clouds. I wanted to help Gail, but I had to wait for something new to happen. It was mid-morning when the 747 landed at Ezeiza International Airport outside Buenos Aires. There was mist in the air and the weather was cool. It took several hours to get all the baggage and equipment through customs. At last, it was done, and we got into buses for the long journey to the city centre. Most of the movie crew were going to stay at the Bisonte Palace Hotel. In fact, we had booked all the rooms in the hotel. But Gail, Carla, Brent, and a few others were going to be at the luxurious Alvear Palace Hotel near the Recoleta Cemetery, where we would be shooting. There was no work till the next day, so after we had checked in at the hotel, I lay on my bed and fell asleep. When I woke, it was early evening and it was dark. I had a shower and then I went out for a walk. I was going to meet Rick and some of the members of the crew for dinner at 10 o'clock, an early time for dinner in BA. I walked slowly through the streets, smelling the diesel smoke from the brightly painted collective buses. The streets were full of people. Young people were walking hand in hand, and large families were talking together on the sidewalks. Everyone seemed happy. I began to like BA very much. I soon arrived at Corrientes, a long, wide street full of movie theatres, restaurants and cafes. I stopped at a place called Café Pernambuco and went in. Inside were groups of students talking excitedly, elderly men reading newspapers, and smartly dressed women eating cakes. I ordered a coffee and sat back to enjoy the scene. After a while, I noticed a younger woman sitting by a window. She was dressed in black with a black scarf over her head. Her head was turned away from me so I couldn't see her face. She looked at her watch again, and she looked up every time the cafe door opened. I ordered another coffee and picked up a newspaper from a nearby table. From behind the newspaper, I could watch the woman in black without her seeing me. Suddenly, she turned her head towards me and called to the waiter. I saw the woman's face. It was Gail Lane. I looked around the cafe. Where were Annie and Arabella, her bodyguards? Then I remembered Annie's words. Sometimes she goes out at night without us. Gail was alone. Who was she waiting for? Chapter 8. Café Pernambuco. Gail spoke to the waiter. He smiled, and a few moments later, he returned with a cup of hot chocolate and a glass of water. I watched Gail for half an hour, drinking my coffee slowly. Nobody joined her. I asked the waiter for some orange juice. Too much coffee is bad for me. And I went on watching. After another hour and 2 more orange juices, I had to go to the men's washroom. When I came back, Gail was paying the waiter. She was about to leave. Had someone come in and spoken to her, or had she got tired of waiting? I made a quick decision. As Gail was standing up, I walked across the room as if I had just come in through the door. I walked up behind Gail and said in a quiet voice, "Excuse me, Miss Lane, may I speak to you?" Gail looked very frightened and she held on to the chair. Then she sat down. I pulled out another chair. I sat down and looked at Gail. Her hands were white and they were shaking. "So it was you," she whispered. "You?" "What was me?" I asked. "It was you who sent the message," Gail whispered. "Well, I'm here. What do you want?" "Miss Lane, believe me, I didn't send you a message. I'm here by chance," I said, looking into those beautiful green eyes. "You're not who you say you are," she said. "You arrived at the studios on the day of Josie's accident, but I've seen you before. I know that." "You're right, Miss Lane," I replied. "We have met before, in the street outside the Purple Palace, in L.A. It was the night when Mike Devine crashed his car into mine. The night I took him home." Gail smiled for the first time. "So that's who you are," she said quickly. "You helped me then, and—" She stopped speaking. "And I'll help you now," I said, finishing her sentence. "I'm working for the studio, and they've told me to do everything can to help you. So here I am. What can I do?" Gail smiled again. Then she looked sad. "There's nothing you can do. There's nothing anyone can do." "Tell me your problem," I said. "What about the message you mentioned? What was the message?" Gail opened her handbag, pulled out an envelope, and gave it to me. Inside, it was a piece of Alvea Palace Hotel notepaper. I read the message. If you want to have the photos, go to Cafe Pernambuco, Avenida Corrientes. At 7 p.m., sit at a table by the window. I put the note back into the envelope. What photos are those, Miss Lane? I asked quietly. And what is so important about those photos? What makes you come to a cafe you don't know to meet a person you don't know? Gail looked down at the table. She started. I can't tell you, she said. You wouldn't believe me, Mr. Samuel. Tell me, I said with what I hoped was a friendly smile. Gail took a deep breath. You must keep this to yourself. Don't tell anyone, she began. I'm being blackmailed. Years ago, when I was much younger, when I was just starting to act, I was friends with a man. You need friends when you're a young actress. This man helped me to meet people who worked in the movies. It was all quite innocent. We were just friends. We'd go out for a meal or to see a show. Sometimes we'd go dancing in a club. And the photos are of you and this man, I interrupted. Yes, I believe so, Gail replied. They're pictures of us dancing together at a club. I thought for a moment. And the name of this man? Is he someone important? I asked. Gail laughed. Important? Number dangerous? Yes. I didn't know that when I met him. I thought he was a businessman. I didn't know he was a gangster and a murderer. I thought he was just a kind person who was helping me to start working in the movies. And his name? I asked again. He's changed his name since I first knew him, she replied. Vincenzo Calabrese was his name then. Vincent Calab is what he calls himself now. And now he'll kill anyone who doesn't do what he tells them. He's a madman, Mr. Samuel. This was very bad news. Vincent Calab was a well-known gangster. He was a ruthless criminal, and he had a gang of ruthless men to carry out his commands. So the message was from Vincent, I said. No, Gail replied. I've had similar messages before. This is from someone who's somehow got some photos of Vincent and me. The last message said that unless I paid $250,000, the photos would be sent to the newspapers. Mr. Samuel, if those photos are printed in the newspapers, my career will be finished. If these messages aren't from Caleb, have you any idea who is blackmailing you? I asked. I wondered if it was someone working on the movie, but I didn't say so. Gail shook her head. She picked up the envelope and opened her handbag. As she opened the bag, I saw a small gun inside it. I have to go, Gail said. I don't think anyone is going to come. Perhaps they just watched you this time to see if you obeyed their instructions, I said. I'll walk with you to the Alvear Palace. Downtown Buenos Aires is a safe place, but you're a star and someone might recognize you. Don't worry about me, Gail said. I've got something here to protect me. She touched her handbag. If you're thinking of taking that gun onto the movie set tomorrow, I said, forget about it. The security will be very tight here in BA. Then you take it, Gail said with a smile, and give it to me tomorrow when we're on the set. Okay, I replied, but let me walk back to the hotel with you now. Gail nodded. I paid the waiter for my coffee and orange juice. Then we walked out into the evening air. It was quite a long walk back to Gail's hotel. We didn't talk a lot, but it was a peaceful, friendly time which both of us enjoyed. Outside the hotel, I said goodbye. I put Gail's gun into my pocket, and I called for a cab to take me back to the Bisonte Palace. As the cab drove through the busy streets, I was a happy man. Just before going into the hotel, Gail had kissed me on the cheek. Chapter 9. Recoleta. We start shooting tomorrow at 9 at the Recoleta Cemetery, Rick said to me quietly during dinner. I've hired a very good Argentine security company to search everyone who's working on location. I want you to stand with the security guys at the cemetery entrance, Len. You'll soon be able to recognize everyone. So the next morning at 7:30, I was standing at the entrance to the Recoleta Cemetery on Calle Juna, opposite Plaza Alvear. The Recoleta district is one of the richest and smartest in Buenos Aires, and the richest people in BA are buried in the graves in the cemetery. We were going to shoot a scene in the cemetery, a scene in which Gail, as a private detective, had a meeting with an international criminal, Brent. That morning, Carla Junin was closed to traffic. Trucks full of movie equipment, buses for the extras, mobile dressing rooms for the stars, and catering trucks were all parked in the Calle Juna. Electric cables joined the lights and the other equipment to powerful generators outside the cemetery. Standing next to me was a man called José Luis from the Argentine security company. His men and women were searching everyone as they arrived. In my jacket pocket was Gail's gun, in a mailing envelope. Fortunately, no one had decided to search me. Gail and Brent Foster came from their mobile dressing rooms and stood at the cemetery entrance. Gail was looking worried. As soon as she had been searched, I gave her the mailing envelope. "Excuse me, Miss Lane," I said. "This package is for you." Gail took the package and smiled at me for a moment. Then she walked into the cemetery. By 9 o'clock, Carla was ready to begin shooting. Huge lights lit up the front of one of the biggest tombs in the cemetery. The tomb was built of white stone, and it was the size of a small house. The front of the roof was decorated with life-size white statues. 2 cameras were going to shoot the scene. One camera was lifted up in the air on a crane. Another was on metal rails laid on the ground. When she edited the scene back at the studios, Carla would edit together shots from the 2 cameras. Carla sat in a big folding chair with director written on the back. When everybody was ready, she shouted, "Cameras, action!" Brent Foster, wearing a white raincoat, walked along a path towards the camera on rails. Then he stopped by the front of the tomb. After a moment, Gail came running up to Brent. "Cut!" Carla shouted. Brent, I want you to look a bit more nervous." "Gail, that was great. But I'd like you to look a little more excited, please." They repeated the scene 7 times before Carla was satisfied. Then we all stopped for coffee. The makeup artists repaired Brent and Gail's makeup. The cameras moved to new positions. Soon another scene was being shot in front of the tomb. This time it was a conversation between Brent and Gail. I wasn't really bored, but there wasn't anything for me to do. Annie and Arabella were there to look after Gail, so I decided to take a walk around the cemetery. The tombs were magnificent. There were many styles of architecture, but all the tombs showed the wealth of the people buried in them. I must have been walking around for half an hour before I decided it was time to go back and check on the shooting. I went towards the tomb where the movie crew was working. I was thinking about Gail and the messages she had received when I saw someone dressed in black lying on the ground beside the back wall of the tomb. I ran quickly to see who it was. It was Annie. Her hands were tied behind her back, and there was tape across her eyes and mouth. I looked around carefully. I felt that someone was watching me, but I couldn't see anyone. I walked very quietly along the side of the tomb towards the front. At that moment, something made me look up at the roof. Was someone hiding there? All I could see was the line of white stone statues, statues holding flowers, statues holding plants, statues holding books, statues holding huge stone balls. Then one of the statues with the stone ball moved. Was I dreaming? No. The statue took a step forward towards the front edge of the roof and then stood still again. I ran around to the front of the tomb as fast as I could. Gail and Brent were still standing there in the bright lights of the set. I looked up and saw the statue right above them. The heavy stone ball was now raised above its head. I dived forward, pushing Brent out of the way and throwing Gail to the ground. "Cut!" shouted Carla. "Crash!" The heavy stone ball hit the ground just where the two stars had been standing. At that moment, Arabella jumped on top of me. "Stay away from Miss Lane," she shouted as she pulled me away from Gail. "What do you think you're doing?" Carla shouted at me. "There's no time to explain," I replied, running around to the back of the tomb, closely followed by Arabella. But we were too late. The statue had gone. Arabella untied Annie and took the tape off her face. "What happened?" Arabella asked. "Someone jumped on me from behind," Annie muttered angrily. "I don't know who it was." "Was it him?" Arabella asked, pointing at me. "I don't know," Annie replied. "It could have been." We walked back to the set. I explained to Carla what had happened. Gail and Brent were okay. Gail was laughing nervously and Brent looked a bit shocked. Then I found Rick and told him what had happened. "I knew trouble would find you, Len," Rick said with a smile. "I was right." "No," I replied. "I was just lucky. I'm pleased that I was able to save Gail. But it was only luck. Why don't you call the police?" Rick looked away from me. "No, Len," he said quickly. "We don't want to involve the police. We have to go on to Istanbul in 3 days' time. We can't change the schedule. We can't wait for an investigation." "Okay, but there's another thing," I said. "I'm meant to be advising Gail on how private detectives behave. I haven't had a chance to speak to her about that yet." "Making you her advisor was just a way to get you onto the set," Rick answered. "Still, I suppose you're right. Gail and Brent are going to a tango show tonight with Carla and me. Why don't you come along with us? You can talk to Gail there." "Okay," I said. "And one more thing. I need some transport of my own. This is a big city, and I need to be mobile if I'm going to protect Gail." Rick thought for a moment. "We can hire a car for you," he said. "A motorbike would be better," I replied. "It will be much quicker in heavy traffic." "I'll see what I can do," Rick said. I spent the afternoon on the movie set. I watched Brent and Gail acting the same scene again and again. Movie schedules are made up of short periods of hard work, followed by hours of standing and waiting. But no one tried to kill Gail. No one tried to sell her any photographs. Gail didn't need the gun. Arabella and Annie didn't attack me. No statues moved. I was bored. When shooting ended for the day, Gail came over to me. "I've got to talk to you," she said, looking around to see if anyone was listening. "Not here," I said. "There are too many people here." "How about tonight at the tango show?" She stared at me. "How did you know about that?" "Our visit to the tango show was meant to be a secret," I laughed. "I'm a detective. I said.